Interesting. All right. And do they ever fight with them?
I recently had to take back another dog, and Sasha is now in the process of trying to dominate this new dog. It's also a female, also a biter.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go get it. Go get it. Oh, here it is. Right?
Can you get it?
Don't push it over. Don't.
We should go get it and bring it back. Any other questions? And I've got treats here. You want a distractor?
Yeah. Sasha.
Oh, no. Don't, if you ever are in that situation, my advice to you, completely unsolicited, is don't push her back.
Don't push her back. Okay.
Much more likely for her to go snappy on your hand.
Yeah, that's probably true.
You know,
yes.
you want to just take a treat and throw it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Right.
Okay. Yes. Question.
How do each of these two bitches react when you are petting one and not the other?
Great question. Did you guys hear? How do these two females react when she's petting one and the other is watching? Good question.
The one that's not being petted will come over and push the other one away.
Okay.
Is that the answer you expected?
And what do you do when they do that?
I get up and leave. I
Get up.
I get up and leave.
Get up and leave. Okay.
I don't partial either one.
Okay. Good. Back in the maroon.
Same breed.
Oh, they're both
about
Keeseys.
the same.
Same age, same breed. And I'll go back here. Yes.
I'd like to know what you're feeding your dogs.
Excellent question, and I would definitely include that in a consultation. What are they eating? Very important. So is exercise.
It's a mixture of Science Diet WD, largely because of older dogs in the pack, and Flint River Ranch. I would love to do something like raw diet or whatever, but with the numbers that I work with, it's, aside from cost, well, even, you know, it's mainly just how do you do it so one dog doesn't eat it all and get sick.
Right. How much exercise do Hope and Sasha get?
There's a very sizable fenced-in yard where they can run around.
And how much do they, I mean, you just let them out, or?
Well, what I try to do is at least once or twice a day, go out with all the dogs with a batch of hot dogs and take little bits of them and throw them in different directions and walk around there. This breed is not terribly retrieve-oriented, so throwing tennis balls or her fly, no.
Okay.
But you can get them running around.
So how much running, and keep in mind that, I mean, if a dog's running really hard, they might run for 10 minutes and then be tired if they're 7. How much running a day in minutes would you say she gets, or even just fast trotting?
Probably less than 10 of fast.
Okay.
Probably
And does she ever get sort of like a long leash walk or anything?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Not now.
Okay. Okay. Is there ever time you spend just you and her together and nobody else?
Not recently, but I'll tell you, this trip has made me change my mind about that.
Okay. And I want to warn you, when you come home, you might have some problems.
Oh, I'm very well aware of that.
Okay. And you know, right? Right. Yes, standing up.
I have 2 questions. One is...
No, you only get one.
You say you had 24 dogs running around the house. I'm sure they all run to the door at the same time. Do you take any of these dogs to obedience classes? Do you do obedience classes with them so that they understand that you're the leader of the pack and not them? I mean, and do you use positive messages?
Okay, so 2 questions. We'll sort of make it one. Let's see, how can we make that one question? How much positive reinforcement training have your dogs had? How's that?
Gobs and gobs.
Gobs and gobs. Okay?
I don't believe in anything but positive.
Okay, she has a lot of positive reinforcement, and they've had many classes, or mostly at home?
Oh, well, see, some of these dogs are definitely mine, and they've all been through various
So your
agility,
dogs go out to classes in agility,
yeah,
and
they do.
and the rescues.
But some of the rescues, I just don't have the time for.
I can't imagine why she doesn't have every dog she has in agility. Oh, yes.
What are eating and sleeping arrangements for the
Very good question. Thank you. What are the eating and sleeping arrangements of the dogs? And I'm going to say of her.
I don't.
When do you eat? When do you sleep?
Okay, eating and sleeping arrangements. Now, bear in mind, we're dealing with a breed that is pretty mellow, easygoing, okay? So don't generalize any of this to other breeds.
Okay.
I can put bowls down, scattered throughout. I have a fairly sizable.
Do you just feed free choice?
Free feed with filling the bowls as they need it. And it's just
Okay.
all open.
Okay.
Sleeping arrangements, except for one dog, the one that I recently took back that has bitten children and is a cat killer, I discovered, unfortunately.
Oh, not your cat.
No, he got it to the emergency room, but we've now erected all sorts of doors and things so that won't happen again.
Yeah,
But anyway,
okay, good.
except for that one dog, all the other dogs are free in the house.
Okay, so they sleep wherever.
They sleep wherever.
Does anybody sleep with you?
Yep.
In bed?
Yep.
How many? And who do you sleep with? You get so personal in this business. Bunches?
It's
Both
a king,
females?
It's a king-size waterbed.
However many can get on.
That's right.
And both of them?
Yes, they both.
Both the females. And do they ever get into it on the bed?
Yep.
They do.
And you want to know when?
Yep. Yep.
Typically, it is in the morning when it's time to get up, and I start to stir.
Okay.
Now,
Sort of beginning of arousal.
Beginning of arousal.
Okay.
And that really sets off several other dogs going for each other.
Okay.
However, I've found a way to partially solve that.
And what do you do?
I was at a seminar several weeks ago in which something called a power stick was introduced.
A power stick? Mm-hmm. Do tell us.
It comes from...
I have horrible visions of,
yes,
a club or something.
It sounds a bit like it, and looks a little bit like it. What it is a PVC pipe, about 5 foot tall, with little nuts or bolts or BBs or something inside of it.
Oh, it makes a noise.
And it makes a noise. This is a gal that, I don't know if you know Val Maurer, but she
don't know her.
She does border collie rescue.
And it's but it's like a big pop can with
it's like a big pop can.
Coins in it.
But her argument is, and this came from herding apparently, that unlike a pop can, which you throw at the dog and may miss the dog or may miss, and then all the dogs are scared, you walk over towards the offending pair, let's say, and you just stomp this thing in front of them.
Okay.
So what I've modified that. I have it by the bedside in the morning. Stop. Yeah. And as I begin to stir, and I've learned that the slower you can do this, the more, very, very, very carefully pick this up. And as soon as anybody goes for somebody else, just stomp this beside the bed, and everybody stops.
Okay. Okay. So she's basically getting a startle response, which is a great way to sort of redirect. Okay.
Oh, did it get too far away?
Oh. Okay. She fetches well, doesn't she? Okay.
I'm well trained, let me tell you. I'm very well.
I know you have lots more questions. I know. But here's the deal. It's almost 2:30. We have lots of stuff to do. So here's what I'm going to suggest. We're going to stop here. And I'm going to talk about status and the D word. And I'm going to talk about some of the methods that I suggest for people who have in-home issues, and I think some of them will be helpful to you. And then we're going to get back together and come up with treatment plans for her. Or then we're going to get back to her case, come up with treatment plans. And here, this is an authentic question. I'm going to run a possibility by you because we have to be out of here by 4-ish. Here's my suggestion. If we break right now, I'm afraid we're going to run out of time. So here's one possibility, and either way's fine with me, is that if you guys are okay, and this is asking a lot on Sunday afternoon, if you guys are okay with this, what we'll do is let me talk about status now. Let me go through some of the feeling outnumbered exercises and do that. And then we're going to combine a break and you guys breaking up into small groups. sort of time efficient, so you can run to the girls' room, talk while you go, come up with some suggestions. What my goal is for you to break into small groups and come up with not a full treatment plan. It's not realistic for now. I want you to come up with 4 things you would tell her. Pick the 4 most important things you can tell her that you think might help her out, given her circumstances. You know, and an acceptable answer is not, well, you shouldn't have 24 Keezies. You know, that's not going to help her, right? You need to be realistic here. So, you know, so if we do that, we would go for another half hour. Is that okay? Is everybody all right with that? All right. Okay. So, don't clap because it's going to set off little Sasha girl. Everybody nod. Thank you. Thank you. So let her get Sasha out. Go ahead, put her back in the car, and then come on back so you can hear the rest of what we're going to talk about. So okay. So sort of mull on all that stuff. Oh, you need the mic. Get her, George, get her. File all that away. And what I want you to do is like sort of file that away, leave that in one part of your brain, and I want you to just over here to another part of your brain and focus on what seems like a different issue, except it's not. I'm going to talk about status. I'm actually going to turn on my computer right now because I have some slides. Isn't that a little cutie? That was to another dog who lives in the household. So, to another household dog. So here's what I'm going to do before we break up into groups. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to talk about status and the D word. And I'm going to go over very briefly a couple of generic, generalized ways of handling dogs, exercises, perspectives, philosophies that help almost all cases. Not all cases, but almost all cases, especially if they're not severe. Most of those, again, are described in Feeling Outnumbered. I won't be able to spend as long as I'd like to, but they're sort of hard to demonstrate because you need to have a lot of multiple dogs who you can all work together, and that gets tricky in demonstrations. So let me first talk about status because I think it's such an important aspect of social relationships between dogs, and it's become very controversial. I mean, as you know, there are some people who think because dogs aren't replicates of wolves, that status is just irrelevant. You know, the D word has become sort of a dirty word to some people, and I absolutely empathize. The term dominance has been so misunderstood and so misused that some of my colleagues won't even use it anymore, and I absolutely understand why. I'm not willing to drop the word because I think it's still relevant in dog interactions. My perspective is we need to use it correctly and to educate people what it really means. Thank you. I was feeling a little dark over it. It's so dark here. So yeah, that's fine. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about status and dominance and what those things really are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, remember yesterday, if you were here yesterday, I talked about I'm an ethologist, and that's my perspective. I've always found it helpful when an issue gets murky, like this whole issue of dominance and status in dogs. It's helpful, I think, to step back, be Jane Goodall, be an objective observer, and look at this comparative perspective. Look at what we know about dogs and canids and who they are and who they aren't are. And what's really valuable about this is there are a lot of species who have status hierarchies. It's not just wolves. There are lots of species who have status hierarchies. And we've got millions of hours of observations and published papers on them. So there's a lot we know about social hierarchies, dominance, submission, and status. And that's where I want to start first, is looking at that. Next slide shows, I think it's a 2 dogs greeting. And I don't know about you, some of you are a lot younger than I am, but even 15 years ago when I started Dog's Best Friend, the standard advice and what I was trained to do, what all the books said, is if you have 2 dogs who have status-related issues, as clearly Sasha and Hope do, I would argue, then you have to decide who's dominant and support them. And I did that, and I will quickly summarize the results to you. 15 to 20% of the dogs got better. A large percentage of them where there was no change, and 15 to 20 to higher percentage of them got way worse. And remember I said first do no harm? It did not feel okay the first year of my practice when people would call and say, okay, now they almost killed each other. Got any more ideas? You know? I mean, nobody said that, but I mean, I felt this is not okay. You know, first do no harm. It wasn't working. You know, 15% of the problem behaviors you see as the behaviors, they're going to get better by himself. If that's your best success rate, you ain't helping, you know? So I went back and I looked at the ethology about status, and I questioned, I said, should we really be doing that? Should you decide who's dominant and then favor them and treat them first and let them out the door first? And so I believe very strongly not in doing that, and I'm going to go over a few of the reasons why. Next slide. The first thing that I find useful, again, as I mentioned, back up and let's look at it sort of an ethological comparative perspective about hierarchy, social hierarchies. They're very common, but they're usually found in animals like wolves who have clumped, scattered resources, meaning the food is distributed in space, not sort of all over the place. There's not like lots of low-quality food everywhere, like grass. Horses are not territorial, for example. The males protect the females. They possess the harem, the females, but they don't care about space. But wolves take down a deer, what, once every 2 to 3 days? Oh, take down a deer once every 2 to 3 days, or an elk. And so there it is, all the food in one place. And there's the whole pack, and they're all hungry, and they all have to eat it at once. How do you resolve conflict? That's what hierarchies are about. Social hierarchies are about resolving conflicts. Because if every time it's resolved by the animal who wants it most, being the most intimidating, you're going to get big, bad fights, and they're injurious to predators. They can kill each other. They can tear an elk down and rip their hide open with their teeth. Look at what they can do to each other. Hierarchies are not about aggression. Dominance is not about aggression. It's about avoiding it because it's so dangerous. That's the main idea of a hierarchy. Next slide. There are other animals who get their food in little small, indivisible units. You know, it might be sort of scattered all around, and like these little foxes. These are slightly territorial, or I mean they're territorial, but they don't have the same strong dominance hierarchy because they're not having to compete over this big clumped resource. So one of the things we know from this is that an animal's environment affects how much it needs a social hierarchy. And it turns out that lots of animals are what are called by scientists facultatively social. Meaning, facultative just means it's optional. And if, for example, when coyotes prey on antelope young, which is easier and more effective if you're in a group. They live in groups and they have social hierarchies. As soon as the antelope young are too old because they're too fast to catch, the coyotes go live single solitary lives. They eat grasshoppers, juniper berries. So they part and come together and part and come together. How social and how their hierarchy is formed is based on their resources. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Next slide. One of the things that's been suggested in, for example, have you read Coppinger's book, Dogs? I'm fascinated by that book. I'm really glad they wrote this book. I don't agree with everything in it. I sort of read it like, yes, good for you, Lorna and Ray. Yes, no, yes, what? Yes, you know. So that's me reading Dogs, and one of the things I love about it is it really gets you thinking. And one of the things they argue is that dogs aren't wolves. Dogs as scavengers, dogs evolved as scavengers, and as scavengers, they don't have social hierarchies. And there's a bit of a suggestion in their book that social hierarchy does not relate to our dogs. And that's something I don't agree with. I think our dogs are highly hierarchical. First of all, remember resources. Talk about a clumped resource. You know, she's my owner. I live in the den from heaven. You know, I get organic chicken. I have this incredible resource that is really worth defending from all the rest of you. It's not like scavenging in a garbage dump where it's just sort of yucky stuff that's not very good that's spread all over the place. Next slide. These are dogs. These are dogs who have owners who buy them costumes, you know. Now, they may not like that. They might not be willing to fight over, you know, you can't have my costume. But they have owners who treat them like, you know, like gods and goddesses. That's, I would suggest to you, there are resources in a household that create a situation in which the social hierarchy comes out. Next slide. Certainly it's true, isn't it? It's an awe slide, isn't it? That's one of my little Border Collie puppies, and that's my first Pyrenees. That's Bo Peep, little three-legged Bo Peep. But dogs, all this greeting behavior, all these differences in postures, tail up, tail down, passive submission, active submission, those are the things animals do if they have social hierarchies. You know, if a dog meets one dog with one tail up and one tail down, what, that's not a hierarchy? Of course it's a hierarchy. Have you ever watched dogs overmark each other? You can, by the way, if you're trying to figure out where things stand in your pack, if you have a bunch of dogs, take them outside the last pee at night and watch the progression. It's fascinating. I have 3 dogs, 3 females, 1 male, intact male, 3 spayed females. Great Pyrenees, Tulip is like Queen Tulip, and she's like a force unto herself. Nobody messes with Tulip. Although, you'll see, they can all eat lamb out of a roast lamb pan together without any aggression. But Queen Tulip is Queen Tulip, and she's sort of an entity unto herself. She's alpha female without question. What happens is we go out to pee at the very, oh, we don't, they go out to, I go out, I do my pee in the house, you know. Yeah, be honest, she says. You know, I discovered, by the way, when I was in, speaking of, when I was in Montana and I was working on these sheep ranches, and I was like a woman all alone in the middle of nowhere with all these cowboys and, you know, people from all over the country, and there's nowhere to go. There's no bush there. There's nothing. You're out there all day, and there's just a bunch of guys and me. This is why women in South America wear skirts. I kid you not. They just pull them up and squat right there and pee. And I didn't do that because I'm, you know, a North American, but I'll tell you, I wish I'd had some skirts sometimes. It was like, everybody just turn around, you know? Anyway, so I don't pee, but the dogs do, but it's absolutely predictable. I've taught them, when I say go pee, they're supposed to go. Last night out, it's like it's Wisconsin, it's late, it's cold, I want to go inside. So I say go pee. I've trained them to pee like instantly so I can get inside fast. So they get treats sometimes when they pee outside. So I say, dogs, go pee. Everybody looks at Pip. Because nobody will pee until she pees. Because Lassie won't pee, won't urinate, unless she can overmark Pip's. And it's always between Lassie and Pip. Nobody cares about Tulip. Nobody overmarks Tulip. Tulip doesn't even bother to overmark anybody. I don't need to. I am so cool. Luke, of course, waits for all of the females and then overmarks everything, right? If you're wondering how things stand, this is just a hypothesis, but my guess is that the most if you're looking for where the tension is, look for dogs who are sort of always waiting and overmarking each other. If it's totally solved and they don't care, very often you don't see it. But the only tension, and it's very little between my dogs, is between Pip and Lassie. Okay, so there's no, I would suggest to you, of course dogs have social hierarchies. Of course they do. But that doesn't mean that we should be picking the dominant one. And I'll tell you why based on what we know about social hierarchies. Next slide, Alta. We know that dogs are trying to get sort of the upper hand, you know? We know that many types of dogs, status-seeking dogs I call them, want to be sort of high up in the hierarchy. Next slide. And you can see that expressed even when little puppies are playing. You know, it's not just play, right? But that doesn't mean every dog wants to be the leader of the pack. It's just like people, I think. We have social hierarchies that everybody doesn't want to be the chairman of the board. Everybody doesn't want to be president of the United States. Some people like being followers. You can't have a workable system where everybody wants equally to be sort of high status. Next slide. So what you get is just like in a chimpanzee society, is you get some individuals who are sort of advertising their status, other individuals who are acknowledging that, who may or may not want to rise up there themselves. And that's partly a personality trait. Next slide. One of the things that we know that's most important, and if you get anything, get this part, that we know about social hierarchies, and this is partly based on the work of Zimen, Z-I-M-E-N, who is a great European wolf ethologist. He did tons of work on social hierarchies and social relationship between wolves. And what he found, and this has been found in every species I can think of, from primates to birds to wolves to et cetera, that has a social hierarchy, it's not like there's a dominant and then the rest of the group. And that's how we tend to think of it. Well, who's dominant? As if there was the dominant individual and then nobody else. That's not how social hierarchies work. They've never worked that way. There are three, being really simplistic, there are at least three groups. There's the highest status individual, who we often call the dominant one, but remember, all dominance means is priority access to a limited resource. It means social freedom. That's all it means. Who has the most social freedom? Can you run up and hug the queen? No. Can the queen run up and hug you? Yes. She has more status. It's all about social freedom. Who gets to do what they want to do when they want to do it, the least inhibited. So there's a high status individual, and as we know in dogs and wolves, that's usually a high status female and a high status male. It's gender related. There's an alpha male and an alpha female. I think it gets a little more murky in dogs than it is in wolves. I think this is all confused and convoluted in dogs, much more complicated and sort of mushy in dogs than it is in wolves, because they're not wolves. So there's the highest status individual, and there's only room for one of those. But then there's a second category, the beta category, and this is the category where all the drama is. The beta category are the status-seeking individuals. I want to be alpha. There's tremendous competition and strife and tension within this group. Well, depending on the group. I mean, not in every group there's not tremendous competition, but if there's going to be trouble, this is where it is. And that's true in every species we know of that has a social hierarchy. Talk to a sociologist. Where is the aggression in a big corporation? It's in middle management. Where is the aggression in chimpanzees? It's in the beta males, common chimpanzees. Lots and lots and lots of very status-related species, lots of aggression. And where's the problems? It's within the beta males. They actually form coalitions, very complicated coalition kind of thing. And I think that's what you see in dogs. So you have a high status dog, and then you have these betas. If you look at the wolf research, that's where all the fighting was. Because you get individuals who want to be the top of the beta category, so they have their ear to the throne. I call it the Kissinger syndrome. You know, I might not be president, but boy, do I want the power. I want to be ready to take over. Or I want to be like, you know, the assistant to the throne. But then there's a third category, which are the completely happy to be submissive individuals. So, you know, here we have our high status male, tail up. On the right is my little psycho dog, Misty. Misty was my dog aggressive dog, and she was a status-seeking dog. I so want to be high status, but I'm so insecure. I'm such a little wreck. I'm a little neurotic, anxious wreck, but I really want to be in charge. And it made her a bully. And why am I thinking Sasha right now? You keep talking about, Dina, are you here? You keep talking about how anxious she is, you know? And she's just pushy, 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 pushy. And if she's as anxious as you say and she's pushy, she's a classic beta alpha wannabe. I really want to be the leader, but I'm just a nervous wreck about it. You know, just because you're the leader doesn't mean you're aggressive. And you can get leaders who are nervous and anxious, and you can get calm, confident, Gandhi-like leaders. If you talk to people who do research on wolves, they will tell you, you know, this whole status thing, I got to tell you, yes, it all sort of generally fits, but I got to tell you, what it's like in a wolf pack is more than anything a function of the personality of the alpha. And if the alpha male and the alpha female are benevolent, confident, calm, unreactive, Luke-like, somebody, that shepherd, that's a natural alpha. I'm cool, I'm confident, I don't need to prove anything. I'm happy to take charge if I need to, but I'm not going to start anything. And then you get these beta individuals, and the worst ones are the ones who are not coolly waiting for an opening. They're just, they just have to be in charge, but they're so nervous about it. And so they become sort of bully-like. And then there's this whole other group of individuals, like that little golden puppies, adolescents, and adult females, or adult males and females, adult dogs, what I'm trying to say, who are like, I don't want to be chair of the committee. I don't want to be president. I'm fine. You guys deal with that. And because I'm not going to push it. And one of the really important things to get from this talk on status is that low status, submissive individuals can get lots of things if they're smart. High status is not the only way to get what you want. It's only one way to get what you want. You can get what you want by fighting, and you can get what you want like Pippi does, who is an unbelievably submissive, low-status dog. And Pippi gets what she wants by being smart and clever. So when Queen Tulip, 100-pound Great Pyrenees, big, huge, white Queen Tulip, is chewing on a bone in the living room, and Pip wants it, Pip lies down 20 feet away and starts doing her little thumpy, thumpy, fish floppy, I'm so submissive, I'm just the most submissive, I'm just the most submissive little dog in the world. And I'm going to lie here, and I'm going to thump my tail, and I'm going to grin, and I'm going to lie on my side, and then I'm going to start working my way up to Tulip, and I'm going to tongue flick, and I start working. And Tulip, who is well socialized and a perfectly polite alpha bitch, is like, and looks, and there's all these appeasement gestures. And so Pippi just sort of her way up, but she's watching like a hawk. How's she reacting? Can I move forward? Should I stop? Can I move forward? Can I stop? And she inches her way up all the way to Tulip, and she gets right beside Tulip, and she starts licking all over the face. And so Tulip is like, and then she gets up and walks away, and Pip gets the bone. So do not think the only way to get what you want is with status. But, and this is going to end this conversation, but if I say, I'm going to pick the dominant dog, and remember, dominance is just about social freedom. It's just a relation. There's no such thing as a dominant dog, because dominance is a relationship, actually. It's a high-status dog. It's about social status. Where are you in social status? If you pick one dog out of there, first of all, how do you really know? First, I think a lot of times you don't know. We think we know, but we don't know. I think what happens a lot is we pick the dog who's the highest beta dog, or the second highest beta dog. Because one of the things I've learned, and I had to learn this, I didn't read it anywhere, maybe it's out there, but I had to learn this. Dogs who give really elaborate displays of submission, doesn't mean they're not status-seeking. Sometimes the most status-seeking dogs, when they're being submissive, have the most radical displays of it. Did you ever see the movie of the Wolves of Yellowstone? The reintroduction of the Wolves of Yellowstone? If you saw it, if you didn't, it's a pack of wolves. They followed unbelievable footage, phenomenal accomplishment that these photographers pulled off. And there was a pack with a confident alpha bitch and this scapegoat female that the whole pack harassed and bit and chased and chewed, and it was horrible. And you were like, oh, this poor little, and she was just the loveliest little submissive. I'm just so submissive. I'm sorry, I'm breathing. And they chased her out of the pack like 3 times, and she was always, why are they attacking this grovelly, submissive, poor little thing? Guess who took over the pack when Alpha Bitch died? So she was giving off, remember, a display. That's a display. It's an appeasement display or a display of submission. That's all it is. So have you ever met anybody who came up to you and said, oh, Dr. McConnell, I kiss the hem of your skirt. Every word you say is a pearl of wisdom. I want to stand beside you, and I love everything you say. And meanwhile, they could either be like, what I really want to do is, you don't know. I call it aggressively obsequious, I had a student once who was from another culture, so that was part of it. But he was like right here. He's like, "Oh, Dr. McConnell, I kiss the hem of your skirt." And I was the one. He actually said, "Every word you say is like a pearl of wisdom to me." He said that. I'm not making that up. Every word you say is like a pearl of wisdom. And what I would like you to do is, now that you have given your lecture to your 200 students, is now to take the time to spend 2 hours to give me the lecture personally each day, every day after your lecture. I would like you to repeat it for me over tea. We could have tea together. I would like you to do that for me, please. It's like, what? And he was being really aggressive. I want you to do something that's just outrageous. But I'm going to be grovel, 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 so you can't bite my face, So if we pick the dominant one, I think what often happens, one, what you're doing is you're messing with the beta category. And remember where all the aggression was? It was in the beta category. So here's the tack that we take at Dog's Best Friend, and it's reversed our treatment success. Is it 100%? No. No, no, it's not. And what's the hardest problem? You know what it is. Bitch, bitch aggression within the home. And we wrap everything in a bow with this? No, but here's the tack we take at Dog's Best Friend. And it's worked way better than any other one so far. You have your status, you guys. We acknowledge that you have status, but my guess is that because I can open the doors and I'm the one who I have more social freedom than any dog in my house. Every single one of you has more social freedom than, or should, than any dog in your house. You can open the doors, you can get out the food. You can open the doors, you can get out the food, right? You have the most social freedom. So if that's true, all your dogs are inherently in the beta category. So you shouldn't pick anybody to treat them specially. What I like to suggest, and how I treat my dogs is, and I'm going to show you a video just in a minute of me doing that, how I treat my dogs is, you may have your little, you may be number 23 and 24, but I'm alpha female, benevolent, sweet, loving, kind, Gandhi-esque as much as possible. I'm your parent, I'm your teacher, I'm the authority. I'll take care of you, I'll take care of things here. If you guys have any ranking, it's 23, 24, 25, and 26, because there's no openings in the beta category, But most importantly, and this is really the important part, you don't get what you want in my house by throwing your status around. You may have it, but it doesn't get you anything here. You know how you get what you want, which is access to the food first, access out the door first, access to their human first, and petting. You know how you get that? You get that by being patient and polite. So we're going to live in a household where everybody gets what they want by curtsying and being patient and polite. And what you learn is if you back up and let another dog get petted, you get even better stuff. And if you all put your noses inside a pan of lamb drippings, and some of you back up when I ask, then you'll get some, that's how you get lamb drippings. Nobody gets anything by pushing into me. Nobody, for example, I love, Dina, that you said that if one bitch pushes the other, you go to pet one and another one comes in between them, that you walk away. That's good. I don't let that happen either. And Luke tries that. I'll be petting Pippi. Luke will come over. Mwah, I'm Cool Hand Luke. I'm so cool. And he'll come over and start to nudge her. And I'll do a body block. And I focus on him. I'll just like, Lukey. I may lean forward and say, Lukey, get off. And as you know from yesterday, Luke will back up. And I'll say, just settle down over there. And then I'll go, with the Pippi. I love my Pippi. We're good girl, Pippi. And then I'll go over to Luke. Good boy, want a belly rub? So he never gets what he wants by being pushy. So let me just show you a video of some of the exercises out of Feeling Outnumbered, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to work on a treatment plan. So we're just switching, and I think it's the wrong video. You know what? I'm just go ahead and eject that one. Put it on pause for a second if you'd be so kind. What you're going to see is me doing some group exercises. The basic idea in Feeling Outnumbered, and again, this helps a lot of people, but not everybody, but the basic idea in Feeling Outnumbered is there are a couple of points. One is, and this got criticized, and I understand why, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but one is work with each dog individually and polish up their training. And somebody just wrote a scathing review on Amazon, and I read it for about 30 seconds. It was like, you know, and then I thought, you know, I really understand why they say that, because we talked about it when Karen and I wrote it. London and I wrote this together, and we were like, you know, what we're telling people, a lot of the beginning of Feeling Outnumbered is telling people to spend more time with each dog as an individual and polish up their training. And that sounds so obvious, but you know what? We've had to tell that to every single client we've had. And isn't that true? The more we thought about it, isn't it true the more dogs you get and the more you get into dogs? How much time do you spend not in an agility course with dog B, but at home proofing your dog in that context? How much time do you spend having your dog being brilliantly obedient in your living room, one dog at a time? And most of us don't. So it's really worth, if they don't listen to you in a group, if they don't listen to you when it's just you and that dog, they're not going to listen to you when they're in a group, right? So even though it sounds simple, it's not obvious. It's not intuitive. Everybody, if you have the smallest amount of problems, you need to back up a little bit and say, okay, I have, let's say you have, most of us don't have 24 dogs, right? Say you have 3 or 5 or something, okay? I have 4, let's say 4 dogs. I have 4 dogs. I'll say 4 dogs. I have 4 dogs. How much time do I spend, me and this dog, all by him or herself, not on the agility course, but me and this dog in the home where me and this dog are sort of connected and listening? And most of us, once you get a lot of dogs, don't do very much of it. And you only need 10, 15 minutes with each one. But you really, you know how you need to proof things in context? You know how easy it is once you get into dogs, you put your energy into competition? You're out in dog training class, you're out in the agility course, and you come home and your dogs don't listen as well because you're not spending the time on it. So if you have a problem, you need to say, I don't mean to say that you should drop out of agility, but you need to look at your time and think, okay, it's now worth my while to spend some of my time proofing my dogs in the context I need it, like when the doorbell rings. Okay? So one of the messages is polish up obedience and have your dogs as individuals master a couple of commands, and then start working them 2 at a time and 3 at a time, so that at high level distraction, your dogs will stop, come, and stay where you put them, those 3 things I talked about, and they'll master them no matter what by themselves. So you're home alone, somebody rings the doorbell, you're out with 1 dog, and you can say, lie down, stay there. Good boy, come, even if there's people at the door. If you can't do that with 1 dog, what are you going to do with 5 or 4, right? So let me go, what this is going to show you is some of the group exercises that seem to be very helpful as ways of helping dogs to learn to be patient and polite. And these group exercises, you have to teach the dogs as individuals first. You have to teach them wait at the door, off first. And then you do it with 2 dogs, and then you do it with 3, and then you do it with as many as you want. So is it possible to just go back a tiny bit, Alta, if you'd be so kind? Can you just rewind this video? Thanks. So this is a group wait at the door. And I'm going to say, I'll just say it for you, dogs wait. And they all know this as individuals. And then I'm going to release them with their names. Don't say okay, because then they'll all go, right? And I actually tried to work through that. So it's dogs wait. And then I said Tulip. And then it's Pip. Now Pip isn't sure. Look at Pippi. Are you sure, Mama? Okay. Luke, Lassie. I'm going to do the same thing getting into a car. Dogs wait. I just said it. Tulip. Pippi. I don't know who's next. Lassie. And Luke miscued because they both start with L. This is a group off. That's a lamb that I roast. That's a leg of lamb pan. And you know what? Is it easy to turn the sound on, Alta? Let's do it. And I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to want you to watch it, and then we're going to replay it again.
Good girl.
Luke is really rude. Tulip. Use their name to release them. This is a dog who used to be very aggressive over food, very aggressive. Couldn't get within 20 feet of her.
Get off.
Well, now watch this. Watch her tongue. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. So would you stop and would you mind rewinding? Poor baby. Tulip the dog, when she was an adolescent, I got her at about 12 weeks, and when she was about a year old, if a border collie got within 20 feet of her and her food, she went. So I had to work on this. But look at this. That's meat drippings in there, okay? Okay, so go ahead. And Luke does, I almost redid this because I thought Luke is doing a really bad job of this. But I thought, no, be honest, be straight, let him see reality and see how you handle it. Luke, Luke.
Dogs off.
And now I'm going to release one, Luke, Luke, with his name. Always use their name, Luke, Luke. Other dogs have to wait. They're not on a sit stay.
Good boy.
Look at him push. Watch it. Now just watch how I handle it. And I'm looking right at him, speaking quietly. Lassie off. Luke tries again. Tulip. Luke is like, right? Never repeat a command, right?
Get off.
And see, she's not as good. Did you see me sort of like help a little bit? Lick, 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 so Pippi gets it.
Okay. Okay, everybody in.
Okay, stop, if you would be so kind for just 1 second. And the next very short clip is, I want you to just get a visual of what is called the bell of the ball in feeling outnumbered. Feeling outnumbered is another patient and polite exercise. You only do this, you've got to keep these things safe. Obviously, would I suggest that Dina do this tomorrow? No, 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 no. These are exercises I would suggest to prevent trouble. I have no dog aggression issues with my dogs at the house. I have 3 females. At one time, they were all, no, Tulip was neutered very early. But Lassie and Pip were breeding females. Luke is an intact male. And would I have aggression issues? I don't know. I think I could. You know, I'm just guessing. So the things I'm suggesting are not going to fix, would not be things I say, Dina, I want you to go do this at home tonight. Save us. All 24, right? I would not suggest that. These are to prevent and to deal with very low-level, moderate tension between dogs. And again, you must start 1 dog at a time, so they're very, very good at it. Then you do 2 dogs, then you do 3 dogs, then you do 4 dogs. If you have any problems, you've got to get a coach in there because they can watch better than you can. Bell of the ball is for that, you know that dog who is okay until you like pet another dog or give another, you know that dog at the dog park who they're off to your dog, he's 10 feet away, another dog comes up, you say, hi, sweetie, and maybe you give him a treat, and your dog comes over and plugs him. Or you're giving your dog a treat, and another dog comes over and he gets nailed. You know, your dog nails the approaching dog. This bell of the ball is for dogs like that. It's to teach dogs it's okay if other dogs come up when you're around a resource you want. Because you're not going to lose the resource. If you're patient and polite, you're going to get it, and maybe even something better. We just called it bell of the ball, and if you want to go ahead and play, it's a very short sequence, all to go ahead and get this playing. She can do that somehow without moving. She's a miracle. So I'm pretending there's an issue. I have Luke on a sit stay, and this is proof. If I needed to, I would have this with leashes. Maybe somebody else handling. Let's pretend Tulip is the problem dog. No, Luke is the problem dog, but somebody else would have Tulip on a leash. I've set Luke on a sit-stay on one side, and as Tulip approaches, she gets petting, she gets treat. And just like I treated dogs for being on the stay yesterday, he gets treats for being on the stay and letting me do this other stuff. Good Tulip. Oh, aren't you a good boy, Lukey? Good Tulip, good Lukey. And then you would pull, and you can stop there, and then you would pull Tulip away. So say I had a real sort of You know, I had dogs growling at each other. I would have a family member have the tulip equivalent on a leash. I would be sitting down. I would have my growler proofed on a really great sit-stay in context. So this happens in the living room, do it in the living room. Would have them on a sit-stay in the living room, lots of good dog, good dog, good dog when no other dog enters, and then a family member would bring another dog in on leash and come forward 10 feet. Good, 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 good. Then they'd go back again, then they'd come in again, and gradually over time they get closer and closer and closer. Does that make sense? Okay. I think you guys have sat here long enough. Maybe it does. It's like, maybe fast for you, lady. We're sitting in these chairs. So while people are coming in, I'm going to ask for basically what I would like. And Dina, are you here? Go ahead, and you don't need to get Sasha, but you can either stay back there, come out, either way. Are you mic'd? Okay. Why don't you stay back there for a little bit? Here's what we're going to do. What are we going to do? What we're going to do is I'm going to ask for volunteers. I would like a representative from 5 groups. So I just need 5 people. Obviously, there are way more than 5 groups here. But I would like representatives of the 5 different groups who would come up and just hang out here so we can do this fast. And I'm going to ask each one of you to come up and just give, it's best if you come here, right? It's best if you come behind this microphone. And you're just going to give us one idea. You don't have to, I don't want you to give the whole plan that your group came up with. So what we're going to do basically is you're going to shoot out ideas. We're going to talk about some possibilities, and I'm going to tell you what I would suggest, at least a couple of things that I would suggest. So do I have any volunteers? You. That's 3. Let's just start there if anybody else feels emboldened. I'm actually going to get my notes so I can take notes. So you're going to talk into that microphone. And I just want one. What's one thing that your group came up with? I'm just going to sit back over here. What's one thing your group came up with?
Well, one would be to give the dog an alternative behavior, to teach a behavior to do. So whether it be to watch or pick something up or get the clothes out of the dryer, but to give an alternative behavior, basically a redirection. And
that's, if there was only one thing I could tell her, that is the thing I would tell Dina, is it's going to take a time, all right? But if you could teach Sasha an incompatible behavior, so she suggested an alternative behavior, and an alternative one that is incompatible with running over to find hope, I would teach her to do so. So what you're going to do, you're going to have to manage things such that you can have a time where it's just you and Sasha, all right, in the house. So you find some circumstance where you can do that, and then what I would do is I would go to the door, and I would ring the doorbell, and I would have, she loves food, I would have some kind of food, and I would teach her to go run, get a stuffed ball, or does she like squeaky toys, stuffed squeaky toys? Phooey. I would love her to redirect to something she could chomp on, so sort of like a stuffed toy thing. Yeah. But it could be a ball, it could be, this is where it takes some time to know the dog well, but some incompatible behavior that is something she's most likely to do. So this is where you really need to know the dog.
So can I just ask?
Absolutely.
Would you at that, okay, you start with the dog and with the doorbell, you get her redirected.
Right.
Okay. Now, at what point and how do you introduce the
Yes,
rest of
it's
the
a very
environment?
good question. So, okay, so fine. Now you have her doing it by herself with no other dogs out. Then I would work, again, in this incremental, step-by-step march towards reality, So I would then ask her to do it when 3 of the males are out.
But you would not go next with Hope.
No, it's a very good question. I would also be teaching Hope this separately. I would teach it to both of them, all right? But obviously not simultaneously.
No. Right.
So just taking one dog at a time, the steps would be you and Sasha and these stimuli. And you're going to have to generalize, and you're going to have to do it in different rooms. If you just teach it in the living room, it won't work in another room.
Right.
Do it in different rooms, just you and her. Then you and her with some other of the male dogs out, and you're going to work your way up. This could take you a year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so obviously as a patient woman, it's going to work your way up to sort of the whole group and her and Hope together, and somebody else doing it besides you. Okay? But
Good
you're going to
point,
need
yeah.
to generalize.
Yeah.
Be sure that you give at least 6 or 7 different kinds of sounds, or she'll never generalize it. Do it in all the different rooms of the house. So that's a great idea from your group. But I'm sure a lot of you came up with that, right? Absolute number 1. Question?
Would you teach both the dogs to find a toy because could they meet somewhere?
That's a great question. Would you teach, that's a great question, would you teach both the dogs? What if both the dogs were taught to go get a toy and they both went for the toy and fought over the toy? I would teach different behaviors. And usually that's okay because all the dogs are different and they like different things. With some dogs, it's actually best to teach a downstay. But not, you know, that's sort of that mellow, phlegmatic kind. You know, I like being here. I don't really know that's going to be Sasha's kind of thing. I don't know if that'd be
Not
a key.
Sasha, but Hope.
But maybe
might be.
Hope? Okay. Okay. And given how status-seeking both of them are, I think that would be a good thing. Okay, next.
Since there is some tension over the bed, I would probably suggest or eliminate the sleeping on the bed for both or all dogs that are currently sleeping on the bed.
I would too. and I think, and thank you, and that's a great suggestion. And if I may, I'll just sort of riff on that for a minute. I actually was speaking to somebody at the break who has 2 dogs. There's a lot of tension, and sometimes one dog is on the bed and the other dog walks by and growls, or I don't have all the details right, but there's tension between these 2 dogs, and it's so serious that sometimes when one dog walks by, they actually wet their pants, you know, they urinate as they're walking by. And I suggested not letting those dogs sleep on the bed with her, and understandably her face was like, but I like sleeping with my dogs. And here's my suggestion, and you can laugh all you want. I don't mind. I don't care. But I will tell you, I mentioned to you that I have 3 bitches. I have 1 intact male. I have 4 dogs. I live by myself, and I have the softest, sweetest, cuddliest stuffed dog you have ever met in your whole life. And it helps. It works. And I have a wonderful partner who comes and is there sometimes, and he doesn't mind my stuffed dog at all. He even bought me one to travel with.
Would you have
So-
no dogs on the bed or just those
I
2?
would, frankly, I were you, I would suggest no dogs on the bed. Now, one of the things that's really, sorry, Sasha, story, that's tricky about this, sometimes if you're too quick to say, okay, change everything, no dogs on the bed, you can actually create more problems. So in terms of how exactly is she going to just have this happen, I would, we don't have time, but I would talk to her at length, especially given the number of dogs she has. I would talk to her at length. We would probably spend a half an hour on the sleeping arrangement issue. Because it is so loaded. One of the person who was talking to me about break about her dog said, it's like they're a different dog when they're up on top of the bed. Height is related to status. And I know some people poo-poo this and say, who sleeps on the bed is irrelevant, it doesn't matter. But I have so many clients whose dogs bite them if they move in bed. You know, dog sleeping in bed, the human moves over and the dog bites them. And then you don't let the dog sleep on the bed anymore. And all the other issues that happened elsewhere stop happening too. So it's not magic. But this is a belief, this is not a fact. So there's no research to support this, but this is my belief based on a lot of study and a lot of anecdotal observation, a lot of reading. My belief is that dogs' height is related in a dog's mind to status, just as it is with ours. I look up to him. I mean, come on, you know? It's the higher you are, then the more status a dog has. I believe. So I think her dogs are different dogs when they're up in the bed because they're like, I'm king of the mountain, nah, 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 nah. So when you put two status-seeking females right in the middle of the core territory, you know, you're just really adding to all the tension. So it might be you let the males sleep on the bed, but not the bitches. The bitches sleep in crates.
Well, there's another problem with that, but
Gotcha. And I know. Sometimes it's just like, well, you know, I put them in, you know, they can't go in a crate. They're terrified of crates or something. But yes.
Question about the sleeping on the bed then. As a general rule for the multi-dog household, should they not sleep on the bed, or if you have no problems, like in my house, where you
I'm so glad you asked that.
yourself fine and never guarded space with each other?
Let me repeat that because it's such a good question. She's saying if you have a multi-dog household and you have no issues between them, is it okay to let them sleep on the bed? Of course. Of course it is. Half of why I don't have I don't have any issues with my dogs right now, but half of them why I don't have them on the bed is because I spent all day. I spent all day with dogs, and I have dog hair everywhere, except in my bed. And I just want one place. You know, you put, you know, on the pillow thing and the hair there. And so a huge part, frankly, of why I don't have a dog up in bed is because it's the only place in my house that isn't, I'm always, you know, either cleaning up dog hair or not and feeling like, boy, is my house dirty. You know? So that's a big part of why I don't have my dogs in bed. I have a farm. I mean, my dogs come in with dirty, muddy paws. I have sheep. So if you want your dogs in bed and you have no issues, oh, sure, let them sleep with you. Who cares? But if you have any signs of tension, that's something to think about. Okay, let's go to the next one. Thank you. Great idea of your group. How many people came up with incompatible behavior? Hopefully, every single one of you did, because that was like job one. How many of you came up with don't sleep on the bed? Bunches of you? Okay, next.
We came up with absolutely master the sit and stay, and even really, really focus on maybe an obedience class within your home, with especially the core group. I know there's, you know, fosters coming and going, but you have a core group. Start an obedience. That will help with the exercise and, you know, mastering those two signals.
And I think that's great advice. And remember, I want to riff on that too. It's exactly one of the things. You guys are doing great. It's exactly one of my 4. But remember, she goes to lots of classes. This is a really dog active woman. She's in agility. She takes her dogs out to classes. So one of the things to keep in mind, and this is not, again, intuitively obvious, although it is once you say it, it's like, well, yeah, I knew that, is that it's one thing to practice in agility. It's another thing to have your dog listen to you in the living room and in the bedroom. And my belief, and again, this is just a belief, I think one of the hardest situations to have your dog be really obedient is in your house. You're there all the time. You're not on duty all the time. You know that rough love prescription where you put your dog away like all the time and you just let them out a little bit? Well, of course they listen to you. You know, they're like socially deprived. You know, I think that's too extreme unless your dog is eating your face off or something. I mean, frankly, I'm not an advocate of that. If you deprive an animal of social contact, when they come out for 10 minutes, they're going to be great. I don't want to live with dogs like that. I want to live with dogs in my house. You know, I want to live with my dogs. But I think it's the hardest situation to get good obedience in because you're not always on. You want to be off. You're on in the agility ring. You know, I'm in agility class now. I'm on. I've worked all day long. I'm tired. You know, I finally got undressed and I'm ready to go to bed and now there's an issue between my dogs. I mean, that's where it's hardest. That's when I think we need to do a lot of the work. And that's where I was joking about you don't get a ribbon for your dogs being obedient in your home, but somehow we should because that's the hardest thing to do. And so not just adding on to you, it's not just that you need to polish up your obedience, you need to polish it up in the context where you need it. Exactly that room, exactly that room, exactly in that context, okay? Such that your core group, you polish, and I would use those 3 things, stop, come, and stay. And I would love a get off. I would love to be able to tell Sasha to get off. and have her back up. Back up, little girl. Back up, little girl.
She will do that.
Good, good.
She
And so
can do it.
practice that and polish it up some more.
Yeah.
She has very little frustration tolerance. So I would do some sort of downstays with her. Just, you know, I would have my core group do a half-hour downstay like 5 nights a week. I would. And you're going to have to put the Fosters in another room or something like that. But I would have my core group learn frustration tolerance in a real positive, humane way. Great, great idea.
We said to pray always.
And they said,
Pray always.
pray. They said pray. Always. Yes. How we're doing? We're doing good.
Well, we thought one of the first things that should probably be done is with two females that are having the problem is put them on a status reduction program.
Okay.
She's definitely, you can see, she's a status seeker. And we noticed with just wanting the petting from you constantly, and you constantly petting her, I don't think you realize what a big resource your petting her is, and she's not even having to work for it. So some people call it a nothing in life is free program where she'd have to earn anything. When she eats, she's got to sit. When she wants to be petted, she's got to sit. If she wants to play with a ball or whatever she plays with, she's got to sit. So she has to, I think reducing her status would really help quite a bit.
Okay, and I think that's also an excellent idea, and I'm going to riff on that because I have a couple of, I would say something similar, I just say it in a slightly different way. I now talk about patience and politeness, and it's a very similar kind of thing. It's a little different. I used to call it status reduction, and I think the point is a really good one.
Or say please.
But yeah, and it's about, I don't think, and I've come up through the years, sort of come up with this idea, this belief, I don't think you can ever change a status seeker from wanting status. But I think you can teach them to say please. I think you can teach them to be patient and polite. So I think she's always going to be give me an inch, you know. And my guess is, and I'm just guessing, but my guess is here, she was not acting like you normally would at home, right? She was trying to listen to you, talk to you, and keep her dog from being an idiot up here. And she knew she was anxious.
She does not get that at home.
And right.
But
And so
it's
I just
still a very
wanted to
good
point out is what you see here is not always typical. And that's true in the office too. And that's one of the reasons why, even though they're harder to do if you do one-on-ones and they're more expensive for your clients, a house call is always preferable. And I see lots of people in my office. I even do phone consultations. But without question, a house call is the best thing. And you're still not going to necessarily see exactly how somebody is because just your presence is going to change things. People will tell me often, she's never this good, or she's never this bad. You know, it's when somebody's coming to help evaluate your dog and tell you what to do about this serious problem, people feel really nervous. It's very understandable. So, but up here, I was sure that was, I mean, your point was very good and very well taken. Is that something to be thoughtful about? But I was pretty sure that was not your typical behavior, you know. So again, basically, I think she is a very high status dog. I was blown away at how pushy she was out here. So when you say she's anxious, I believe you, but I think she's very much like my little Misty. I think she is, she's got a lot of anxiety in her, but there's a lot of just sort of desperate push. And I'm not totally sure. I'm sure some of that is genetic. I think some of that is, and I'm just going to throw it out here, because actually we should thank you, because I'm going to go on to something else. So thank you very much. I was not clear in my signal. I was trying to come up with a clear thank you signal. Obviously failed miserably. Yes, sit down. But I'm going to add something I would have put actually in the top 4. Well, I guess I would have said 5. Would have said, can I have 5 now? I'm not sure which. I don't know if the no bed would have been in the top 4 or radical increase in exercise. I think Sasha is bored to tears. And I'm just guessing, and I could be so wrong, but what I saw in those little, incredibly intense eyes was, there is smoke coming out of my ears. She is just a lot of dog, a lot of dog. Is she?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Do you?
And indeed, this is the first time I've traveled with her alone without any other dog.
And what's it been like?
It was very interesting because we were staying over with some friends in town, and she was.
Why don't you come on up?
Yeah, this friend gave her this chew bone, wherever it is, and about an hour after I went to sleep, I suddenly heard this tremendous thrashing, and I thought, my gosh, she's going into an epileptic seizure. She was bouncing across the room. I turned down the light, and what she had done was she picked up this rawhide, and she threw it across the room and raced after
Playing with herself.
And I suddenly said, you know, this is a dog that's got to be worked with. So I will take her to obedience classes, and she's obviously she wants desperately to please me.
Does she?
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so.
I think she wants, and I believe you.
Yeah.
And I think she is beside herself with tension.
Yeah.
I think it might be very hard. I'm just going to blurt this out, so don't bite me, okay? Yeah. I think it might be very hard for her to live in a household where there's lots of rescue dogs, where there are lots of foster dogs. And I don't know, I might be wrong, but she's just like a little volcano about to explode to me, and I don't know why. It might be lack of exercise.
Well, I know a fair amount of the background of her, all the way back when she was first purchased.
Yeah.
And I think she's wired. She
comes physiologically
physically
wired.
Very
Got
high intensity.
So that means a lot of activity. She's real reactive. It's going to keep her really buzzed.
And in addition to that, I adopted her out. I got her in when she was like less than a year. I adopted her out within a few months to somebody I should never have adopted.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20.
Right. This was a woman who'd never owned a dog before. And I wasn't clear. I didn't understand how absolutely neurotic she was or how high-strung she was. Yeah. And this woman let this dog control the household. Absolutely control the household. Where this lady could not sit down and read a newspaper, couldn't have dinner,
I can
nothing.
See, can't you see this dog doing it? I mean, she was like, yo, you, give me the treat. She'd known me for like 2 minutes.
Yeah. And
with an offensive pucker.
Yes, yeah. And so after 2 to 3 years and having the dog bite several people,
Took her back.
She brought her back. But of course, by then we had quite a different situation.
Right. Gotcha.
So it was quite another thing to work with. I would place her in a home where you had a very dog savvy person.
Yes.
You know, who had the time and energy to work with her. Yes. But I'm not just going to put her in another situation.
And you're so right. You're so good to do that. I think it might be hard for Sasha to be in this high stimulus environment because she's so reactive and so wired. But on the other hand, I think I absolutely concur, if you put this dog as a single dog in a household with somebody who wasn't like on all the time and knew how to handle a dog like this, she would be biting again in a microsecond. I would exercise her body as much as I would her mind. I would give her not just a lot of physical exercise and not just obedience stuff. I would teach her tons of tricks. I have found, I'm curious, this is an authentic question. Amy Moore and Amy's the training director of Dog's Best Friend. Dr. Addington, Becky has said the same thing to me. All three of us have chatted and compared notes on what tires your dog out more in sort of a relaxing kind of way. This is an important question if you live in Wisconsin and winter comes, you know. And if you have like American Eskimos or collies, you know, like we do, these are important questions. And all three of us have the exact same experience. If we take our dogs out on a long, off-leash, free-run exercise walk for an hour, they'll come back and nap for maybe a half hour, an hour. If we teach them a half an hour worth of tricks, they'll sleep for 2 or 3. You get the same thing? That's right. If you know how tired you can get by mental focus? So one of the things I would do with her is I would teach her fun tricks. And this is important. It's not just sit down and stay stuff because that's like, okay, I'll do this. Although make it really, 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 really fun, right? But I would teach her cute, endearing, unbelievably darling little tricks. And really push her, not, you know, in a bad way, but get her like, so she's really, ooh, what do you want me to do now? Ooh, I got it. Ooh, that's that one. Because I think that'll help calm her down. Last thing, I'm just going to mention it, because it's getting time to end. The last thing I would do that I think is really important is I would look at this dog's physiology in terms of what's going into her, because she is hot-wired. And so you're feeding her some really good food. There's no one food that I know that's good for every dog. So you have to experiment. I found that a couple of the really good commercial dog foods don't set well with some dogs, especially the kind who are super reactive. The kinds that I've had, and again, these are perfectly good foods, but Eukanuba, Science, and IAMS are on occasion, I've seen, and this is a correlation, I don't know, it's just a guess, but I've seen dogs on those foods who can get, a lot of people nodding here, who can get really buzzy. And if you switch them to, there's no other one food, people will say, what? It's like, I don't know, you know? Switch them to another really high quality food that has a lot of, because she can't feed 24 dogs a barf diet. It's not going to, you know, I mean, I don't know, maybe some people do and don't use them, but I do, but she can't. She told us. We have to believe her. I couldn't, frankly. So I would, you know, there are a lot of other good foods out there. Canaday, Wellness, Solid Gold, you know, Flint Rivers, a lot of people think is a great food. I would think about adding some cooked greens like cooked lettuce. The vitamin B complex can be sort of calming. This is a belief. I'm just guessing. Other people who believe this, if you look at Chinese medicine, diets to calm dogs, cooked celery, just cooked green lettuce. You just cook it. You add 2 tablespoons to their food.
What you have to understand is time limits.
I do. And she's like, right, Tricia, 24 dogs, hello.
Oh, listen,
Reality
I also have
check.
a full-time job.
Right, and a full-time job, right, right. So I'll tell you what I do. I have actually, and I'm not complaining, it's just the truth of the matter is right now, I have literally 2.5 full-time jobs and a farm and 4 dogs, so I'm very sympathetic. I have limits too, but I'll tell you the one thing I do is I cook vegetables once a week, and I just, you know, make little packages of them and put them in the freezer, and I can do it awful fast.
And you think
You know.
that is better than anything that you could buy as a pill type or additive?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Reasonably priced.
And way cheaper.
At
I mean,
this
you
point,
know.
I'd be willing to pay. I just don't have
Oh,
the
you know,
time.
you can go to a market and say, can I have your old green beans and get them free? But
And
that
not
takes
cook 'em.
time again. Oh yeah, you got to cook them.
Oh,
They cannot digest unless you juice them. They can't digest vegetables.
I can't
Now,
even cook for myself.
There was, right, she says, I can't cook for myself. Now stop for a minute, because it's almost 4, and this is where it gets like high arousal, 24 keysies at the door, you know? Everybody stop for a minute. I'm going to answer 2 questions, and that's all, as a group. Yes? Wait, no, I'm sorry. This is a non-question because it's from the techie person. Very sweet.
I also
Very
want to
sweet.
thank those of you who've made suggestions. Excellent ideas. I'm constrained by what I can do, obviously, in my environment and with my resources, time-wise, et cetera. But they're very good ideas. You give me a lot of things to work on.
Good.
So it's very
Good.
good.
I'm glad
Excellent.
it's been helpful.
Very helpful.
2 questions, and then I'm going to hang around afterwards, and I can answer questions. Yes?
I have a high anxiety dog myself, and I went to adding, on my vet's recommendation, some of the homeopathic stuff.
Yeah.
Added valerian root supplement to his diet. Do you see anything like that being effective here, going and, looking at some of the alternative?
I am a big advocate at looking at possibilities of homeopathic medicine, of Chinese herbal medicine, financial constraints, time constraints. I will tell you that the one thing I would caution you about is be very careful about just, I think people are a little too casual sometimes now, and I think you would probably agree with me, with some alternative medicines. Oh, it's natural, it's not really, it's not a drug, therefore I can just sort of throw it in there. I go to a homeopathic veterinarian It's a DVM veterinarian, but she's a specialist in homeopathy. I go to a DVM, who's a Chinese medicine herbalist and acupuncturist, and these Chinese herbs have had a profound difference. I'm very much in favor of people who have the resources pursuing that, but I'm very cautious about people just thinking, oh, it's not a medication, so I can use it. You know, be very careful with some of this stuff, because if it's powerful enough to do good, it's powerful enough to do bad. So, but yes, I think that's an excellent possibility.
Either melatonin or amitriptyline?
Okay, melatonin or amitriptyline. I would not mess with melatonin. I'm shocked you can get it over the counter. I think it can have a profound effect on behavior. I would do it only under the care of somebody who really knew how to use it. Amitriptyline is a drug developed for generalized anxiety. She would have to talk to your veterinarian about it. It's a prescription drug. I have a real bias because I'm, you know, an ethologist, right? I'm not a veterinarian. I have a PhD in ethology, a minor in psychology, and so I very often want to go to something that's not medication because we know that amitriptyline has side effects. It can cause liver damage. So you're always, I think, doing a balancing act. I am very amenable to talking about medications with somebody's veterinarian, with the three of us working together, if that seems reasonable. What I think would happen if you used amitriptyline with her, and it's just a guess, is that it would just sort of damp everything down. But I don't think it would solve your problem.
That's my guess,
Is that
too.
your guess,
That's my
too?
guess, too.
That's
I
my
haven't
guess.
tried-
I wouldn't go to it as a first shot. Okay. I'm going to stop there because you guys have been so good. It's time to quit. It's time to thank Narnia and Sandy and Karen and Joy and everybody. It's time to thank Julie. Thank you. It's time to thank Alta and George. And it's time for me to thank you guys because you've been just awesome. You were great to talk to. Thanks a lot. Good luck. See you sometime. Bye.